Where in the Constitution is the federal government charged with maintaining people's health?
Well, there's not in the Constitution. There's nothing in the Constitution that says the federal government has got anything to do with most of the stuff that we do.
To have the constitutional legal sense is another way of saying the same thing. Do you have a right in the legal sense of the word to health care? I don't know. I know. It's not there. I'm sorry. I imagine if you have an accident out on the street and the city of New York refuses to take you to a hospital, you probably have a pretty vigorous tort against them, a civil action against them. Is there a constitutional right? I'm not a constitutional lawyer. I would say perhaps not, but who cares? Who cares? Yeah.
Well, look, we've got to turn this.
More doctors.
Where in the Constitution? We are going to. I don't worry about the Constitution on this, to be honest.
That's my. Well, that's right.
Jackpot, brother. Oh, keep. What I care more about the people that are dying every day that don't have health care.
You care more about that than the U.S. Constitution that you swore to uphold.
I believe that it says we have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Okay.
Tell me.
It
doesn't matter to me. Well, either one.
We know it does. It clearly doesn't matter to you. It's so clear that it doesn't matter to you. It's unbelievably clear.
You wouldn't know what matters to me. You wouldn't know.
It's unbelievably clear that the Constitution doesn't matter to you, sir.
Oh, please.
You just said it 2 seconds ago.
You're going to ask me. Well, ask me what's the question again?
Where in the Constitution does it give you the authority to?
I don't know.
That's what I thought.
Okay.
I think
which one?
The original Constitution, as well as the Civil War amendments. But I think it is an imperfect document, and I think it is a document that reflects some deep flaws in American culture, the colonial culture nascent at that time.
Because the conclusion that I've reached seems to me so unfortunate, I'm trying hard to figure out what can be done about it. Maybe I can get some assistance from the Council on Competitiveness. One thing that perhaps can be done about it is to say, well, we shouldn't really be originalists about the meaning of the Constitution. Maybe Judge Bork had it wrong. Maybe we should think that the Constitution has a high degree of flexibility. Maybe it's a changing and living document. Now, under that conception of constitutional interpretation, maybe we can have the ingredients of a new unitary executive idea. Now, that seems to me not an implausible argument. It rests heavily on notions of an evolving Constitution. It rests heavily on the need to pay attention to changed circumstances. Maybe that one can push us some of the way towards a unitary Constitution. I don't think all of the way.
Madam Speaker, where specifically does the Constitution grant Congress the authority to enact an individual health insurance mandate?
Are you serious? Are you serious?
Yes, I'll email you.
I think we can say that the Constitution reflected an enormous blind spot in this culture that carries on until this day, and that the framers had that same blind spot.
Officials sworn to uphold the Constitution of the United States. I would like you to cite where in the Constitution says the federal government is responsible for these types of actions.
The question was about some of the quote-unquote thornier issues around health care, and first about the Constitution. Well, let me just say, I think that there are some of us who actually disagree about whether we have responsibilities that are inherent in our understanding of the Constitution or whether they're spelled out in the actual words of the Constitution. I happen to be one of those who believes that there are responsibilities that government has to its citizenry that are not spelled out in the single language words of each word of the Constitution, but that they are government responsibilities nonetheless.
If you'd be so kind as to explain to everyone in this room Article 1, Section 1 of the Constitution.
Article 1, Section 1 is the right to free speech.
No, that is the First Amendment.
Okay.
Article 1, Section 1, and for a man that took an oath to uphold, protect, and defend it, you really need to understand it. All legislative power shall be vested in a Congress, a House of Representatives, and a United States Senate. The legislative power, the laws, come from these two houses. There shall be no more activist judges. No more. It is specifically spelled out in the Constitution that all legislative power shall be vested in these two houses. My second point is the First Amendment. You mentioned free speech. The First Amendment guarantees all of us 5 rights. Would you be so kind as to tell us the 5 rights?
I can't articulate.
You can articulate that.
Actually, I think really what it was an effort to get the Tea Partiers to think that they really have some sort of revolutionary plan, because at the beginning they quote a lot from the Constitution, an idea that free people can govern themselves, the government's powers are derived from the consent of the governed, all that stuff. That I think that was an effort to try and appeal to those people, to the Tea Party. They embraced the 10th Amendment. They're tenthers,
Some conservative legal thinkers like Justice Scalia and Justice Thomas think that the Constitution means what it originally meant. That means we should understand the document by going into a kind of time machine and capturing the public understanding of the public that ratified the document a century or more than a century ago. So that is a very distinctive approach. It would involve quite radical changes in our existing constitutional understandings, and Justice Thomas is entirely clear on that.
Do you think the highways is part of the federal bill too? Do you think federal responsibility to provide for highways?
It comes down to the states, like interstate commerce.
The majority of money is federal.
That's why it's
But that's okay. And health care is.
There's a big difference between something that's outlined in the Constitution and something that isn't. Interstate commerce is outlined in the Constitution.
But the Supreme Court never ventured into the issues of redistribution of wealth and sort of more basic issues of political and economic justice in the society. And to that extent, as radical as I think people tried to characterize the Warren Court, it wasn't that radical. It didn't break free from the essential constraints that were placed by the Founding Fathers in the Constitution, at least as it's been interpreted, and Warren Court interpreted it in the same way, that generally the Constitution is a charter of negative liberties, says what the states can't do to you, says what the federal government can't do to you, but it doesn't say what the federal government or the state government must do on your behalf.